All right, you grasshoppers. I sit around all weekend long and I wait for this moment that I can be on with the one and only Mark Puttenvink, one of my buddies here. And again, I said this many times. I learn a lot of stuff from him. He's very knowledgeable with training and diets and all that kind of stuff. Again, he's got his own company called PatriotTrainingSystems.com. You can find him online. He's trained New York Rangers, New England Patriots, a lot of military guys and everything. So, Mark, how are you doing, bud?
Doing great, man. How are you?
I'm good. I like this topic we're going to talk about today. So I'm bad and that I don't always follow my own advice. So I work out every day a week. I love the gym.
Right.
And part of what we're going to talk about is scheduling and everything for training. And I know, so maybe the first thing we can touch is how often should you train?
Well, it depends what you're training for. So if you're just training to stay in shape, you could train 6 days a week. Your intensity levels have to change. I mean, you can't go 100% for a long period of time because you're going to break down. You know, your joints and your tissues, your muscle tissues need time to repair. But if you're training as an athlete, you have to look at the whole year, and you have to schedule your training according to what part of the year you're in. So for off season, there's a pretty specific periodization or scheduling of your training you want to do leading up to training camp. But if you're just working out for yourself, you can work out 6 days a week, even 7 if it's, if you maybe that 7th day is more of a recovery run, right, or recovery bike ride or something like that. Yeah.
Right. So I like to, I try to go like on a certain rotation, right? So I may go on a 5-day rotation where I'm doing chest one day, back, shoulders, arms, legs. Maybe I'll switch it into a 4-day rotation where I include the arms into, the triceps I do on my bench press day, biceps I'll do when I'm doing pulling exercises for back and all kinds of stuff. Is that what you do well? Do you recommend that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I work my workout's a little bit different because I do a lot of martial arts. So that really, the martial arts part of it's a lot of cardio. It's pretty intense. And then the weight training I do now, I do some traditional lifting, but I also do a lot of functional training because I'm at a different point now. And I have, so the difference would be, I still do some dumbbell bench presses and stuff like that, but I haven't done the big bar bench press in years. I tore my shoulders up pretty well. And so that's difficult for me to do that. So I got to get around it in other ways, but I'm more practical, like a lot of high pulls and a lot of dynamic movements and a lot of body weight stuff. I do a ton of pull-ups. I do a ton of push-ups. But there are times when, for instance, today, yesterday I had a really good strength and conditioning workout. So this morning I did more of a skill workout. Still got my heart rate up, but it was a good workout.
I saw the one. Is that the bands there? You sent me the video that you do the band?
So I started off with, my Filipino martial arts, and I did a little shadow box and got the heart rate up. And then I have a band and just did a lot of pressing, a lot of pushing, 20 minutes straight, as many reps as I could get, different angles. Which I like the band because you can change the angles as your.
And of course, you had to have your shirt off too, right? Yeah, you had to have your shirt off.
Yeah.
You don't cover up a Picasso, right? You put Picasso up on the wall. You don't put a blanket over.
Why would you put a cover over? I mean, come on, it's a waste of time. Yeah.
Right.
But go ahead.
So, but that touches on something. So you hurt your shoulder. You've got now bench press is obviously great for your triceps, your chest, your shoulders. But now you've got to get away from that and do other things. So what would you do? So somebody hurts a shoulder. How do you get around, get the same benefits, the same muscle groups, but not be able to do the bench press?
Right. So shoulder injuries are usually a labrum or rotator cuff injury, which is the socket and how that works. So the first thing is prevention is to do a lot of pulling because you want to work your infraspinatus and supraspinatus and your traps and your rhomboids to maintain strength between the front and the back. Most shoulder injuries, including mine, were because too many years all I did was bench pressing and not enough retraction. So, I used to do a lot of heavy deadlifts too, and I think that pulled down on my shoulder. But I did get into a disagreement with somebody one time, and I grabbed his shirt and I yanked really hard to give him a shot. And I yanked so hard, I delivered the intended blow, but I also pulled my own shoulder out. And that was because, again, I didn't have a really good integrity. I had a lot of really strong anterior shoulder strength, but not enough sufficient posterior to make a balance. So when you're unbalanced like that, something bad can happen.
That is true, right? And I was like that when I was younger too. You want to bench press, you want to bench press. You're never working on your back nearly as much as you should. I think you should work your back twice as much as you work your front, right? I mean, it's
Yeah, I think it's 70-30. I'd be comfortable with 60-40, but I would prefer 70% pulling compared to 30% pushing, because everything we do in life generally is in front of us on our laptop. We're driving, we're eating, so we don't do a lot of pulling, during the day.
Right. A little bit off topic here. We got a great question by one of our loyal followers. Again, this is Barry Shelley. I told you about him. He served our country. Great guy. So he's got a question. Mark, with you working with all teams as a fitness coach, did you have to create a different course for each individual, or is it basically the same for all players? Great question.
That is a great question. It does vary sport to sport, but it doesn't vary. So the little bit of time I was with New England, and I was very fortunate because Bill Parcells was the head coach there. Johnny Parker was the head strength coach. The way they do things, I'm sure all the NFL teams do it, is so like on Monday, we're going to do, it's going to be a heavy lift day. But what does that heavy lift day mean to each player? Meaning, are you a skill player? Are you a lineman? Are you on the offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball? So even they were doing a power day, they still split it up according to position. In hockey, I will give the guys a summer program, but I also will tell them what I expect from them based upon their body structure in their game. So like, for instance, a guy like Tom, who's a really big guy, he's a really big man, not worried about gaining size. I'm worried about maintaining strength and being able to be athletic. So two different variables there. I may get a smaller guy, such as myself, say, hey, you need to try to put on 5 pounds. So 5 pounds doesn't sound like a lot, but when you only weigh 165 pounds is a pretty good percentage of your own body weight. It's a lot of muscle mass to put on in a short period of time, say 8 to 12 week period of time. If the athlete falls somewhere in the middle there, he can do the general layout, but there may be things in his or her game that, say, foot speed he needs to work on or she needs to work.
Right. So let's say you get back to what we were talking about before too. Let's say you're not an athlete, but you're training. You're really into it. Like, you're like, I love the training. I think it's mentally, it's great for me as much as probably more than the physical part of it. I don't seem, like you said, I don't take a day off a week. Is there now to extend that out even further? Should you be taking time off? Let's say after 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. Should you take a week off? Something.
Yeah, and the reason you want to do that, you may find. Two things. So you got to be concerned about overtraining, putting yourself in an overtrained state. And basically what that means is you have too much cortisol in your body. We talked about that testosterone peaking out at about 45 minutes or so, and that drops, and you get a big jack up in the cortisol. And then you'll know when you're not recovering, you're constantly sore, you're a little bit lethargic. And then there's the mental component of it. Like, I'm going back in the gym again. So two things. You got to be careful for being overtrained. And a real easy way to determine if you're overtrained is take your your heart rate before you get out of bed. Don't even move because you don't want to excite things. Take your heart rate while you're laying in bed when you wake up in the first part of the morning. And if you find out you have an elevated heart rate, that's a strong indicator you're in an overtrained state and you need to dial it back. And then mentally, of course, you need to take a break. And it can even be, and I tell hockey players, first month is 30 days we call active rest, because you guys got a lot of contusions and a lot of bumps and bruises from a long season. So to stay athletic and keep, the slow beginning to recovering is active rest. Anything but skating and hockey, tennis, basketball, things of that nature, where you're moving around, you're being athletic, but you're not putting the same demands on your body.
You talk about being sore. I'm there right now. Like on Saturday, I went with a friend to the gym, and she's a trainer. So she wanted to do more of a, I hope I say this probably, more of a woman's exercise, working the glutes more and legs and everything, which I haven't really been doing probably as much as I should have. Well, I'm paying for it now. Like, of course, the male ego, right? I have to keep up with it. I can't back down. So I'm hurt. But I noticed even today I worked on back today, and then I went for my march. And I was at, that talk with the cortisol and your drag and the muscles sore and all that. I was like, oh God, you hate that. You hate that too.
That's a great time just to dial it back. Even if it's a day or 2 days. And again, you can still stay active, still go for your march. but maybe just dial back on the intensity of what the other part of your program.
Yeah. Well, and you've helped me too, because you reminded me about doing more supersets, about, getting more of it, so I was, again, doing the back today. I was doing like, let's say pull downs and pull it. So I was doing supersets throughout the workout. So I'm getting more reps and sets in my, normally hour and a half workout.
The great thing about doing that type of training, Tom, and the AMRAP, as many reps as possible. So so you say 20 minutes, I'm going to do as many pull-ups as I can do in 20 minutes.
Right.
Or push-ups or squats or whatever it is. Then you have the other where you're going to do a certain amount of reps for a whole hour.
Right.
Count them up. But you could also do a real short 12 to 20 minute, 15-minute burst, but do it 2 or 3 times a day. So you're still getting in that 45-minute workout, but you bust it up over, say, 3 15-minute workouts.
Sure.
And in that 15 minutes, your test level's high. For females and males, you're still going to have a test rise. You're going to be cardiovascularly, you're not going to be compromised. You're going to be able to go at it really hard. But those 15 minutes or those 12 minutes have to be extremely difficult in terms of, either a Tabata 20-second all out to 10-second, kind of slow it down and pick it back up. We're going movement to movement. So push-ups to pull-ups to bodyweight squats, and you just keep cranking and don't stop.
Right. And what I noticed too, since we started talking about it, I'm much more aware now of that 45-minute hour mark where now there's testosterone levels dropping and you can feel it, right? And I think when you're aware of it, at least for me, when I'm aware that that's happening, I prepare for that. I say, okay, don't slack off here. Now your body's going to be telling you to back off a little bit.
Well, we've always told players, if you're in the gym longer than 45 minutes, you're socializing.
Really?
Yeah.
You think 45 minutes is enough if you're working hard enough?
Yeah. And again, I'm not including the 10-minute warm up on the treadmill or the 10-minute cool down, but your work shouldn't be more than 45 minutes. If you can't get it done in 45 minutes, you're not working hard enough, or you have the wrong program.
Interesting. Okay. Very interesting.
And again, it gets very specific, Tom. So, you and I are at a different point in life. So now we're want to be really healthy, but also kind of aesthetic. So we do some bicep curls. Would I have a hockey team do bicep curls, or a football team? No. In fact, our inside joke was, the strength coach was, what do you do with the team that uses bicep curls as part of the protocol? You schedule them. Yeah. Again, because it's not specific to the sport. Yeah. Yeah,
that's true, I guess. Yeah. I guess, you're ready to think about it, like it's more a lot of back stuff, right? Because you're holding out your arm and pushing the guy away. And stuff.
We talk about the athletic chain really starts from your feet up. And that's why if you're an athlete, most of your work should be feet on the ground in a standing position, because that's how you play your sport. Yes. So whether it's cleans or high pulls, squats or lunges, whatever it is, it's really based upon your feet being grounded on the ground. Again, you work with what you have. And when I went up to the Albany River Rats in 95, I think it was, 94, 95, they had a leg sled and one Olympic bar with 135 pounds on it. That's all I had to work with. So I had to be kind of quick on my feet. Yeah. And I'm not a fan of the leg sled, because name a sport that you're sitting back on an incline and that's your position on the field or on the ice surface. What's happening also, Tom, is because your back is supported, your hips are supported, you're increasing your leg strength. But then you go to develop to give somebody an open ice hit, you're going to have plenty of leg strength, but you won't have the stabilizer or synergistic strength in your core, and you're going to get blown over. So that's why you really want to,
I tell everybody this too. If I could go back, the one thing I'd change about my career is understanding how important my core is to my strength. Mm-hmm. Right? It's always like, that young guy, you're going to bench press a lot, you're going to deadlift a lot, you're going to squat a lot. But if you're not taking care of your core, like the core has to be the first thing that you tighten up, right?
And then because sport is multi-directional, so you can even enhance that position. So what do I mean? So say we're doing a front lunge, right? Single leg lunge. You could work a clock. So you have different angles on that lunge. Because you're gonna cut this way in sport, you're gonna back over this way. So you want to work kind of multi-directional, multi-angle. Obviously you're not gonna do this with a lot of weight, but with body weight or some light dumbbells, it's a great thing to do for sure. Yeah.
Good. All right. So short term, then, as far as the length of the workout, how often you should work out a week, like every 3-4 months, whatever, taking some time off.
Right.
And so now, like you and I, we training is a big part of our life. Like long term over years, I mean, you just keep going, right? I mean, there's no need to.
Yeah. So one of the most important things we all should do, and I do, and I'm sure you do as well. I log every workout every day. My body weight in the morning, and if you're concerned about your body weight, weigh at the same time every day. Don't weigh it multiple times. You're going to make yourself crazy.
So you like to weigh yourself all the time. Every day you weigh yourself
in the morning, first thing in the morning. Yeah, just to keep
right
tabs.
See, here's my only argument against it. I don't like to weigh myself because let's say I've got too much water in me or whatever, and I've got like a couple extra pounds. I'm like, oh, God, like it's almost like I get mad at myself and. Because
it depends how you approach it mentally. I look at it as it's just kind of it's a data point. It's not. Right. It doesn't tell the whole story. It's at that particular day, at that particular time. This is what I weigh. But you're going to look at big fluctuations. And that's what you don't want to see. But I keep a record of every workout, what I did, the time I took to do it in, and then even if I'm doing skill work, I include that because it's you're still stressing your neuromuscular capacity. So, we can't get confused with weightlifting and doing skill work being two completely separate things because you're still draining your nervous system, right? So you have to factor that into your recovery. I had done some work with the Red Bulls when they were the Metro Stars, the soccer team, and their guy there, he had scheduled recovery days right on his, like I guess Captain Jack did. Right on the calendar. Yeah, they schedule them. And what was interesting, and I really have to laugh because, I would have to weigh in players. I won't say what team, but you can do the math. I'd have to weigh them in, and I didn't want to get into an argument with upper management. But a weight is just a number. So you could be 205 pounds at 10% body fat, or you could be 205 pounds at 25% body fat. Yeah. It's the same number, but they're different people.
Right. Yeah. Body fat. So you can use the body mass index, correct? You're basically using your weight and your height.
Yeah. And there again, I mean, unless you're really going to do the dunk test where they put you in the water, and body fat, like with the calipers and stuff, they can vary all over the place.
No kidding, right? Whoever's doing it, you get two different people do it and get two different results.
In fact, when I was with the Rangers, rookie camp was in Toronto. They had 4 teams play then. The kids played. I think it was New York, Buffalo, Detroit, and Toronto, right? So I get up there the first day, and I was up there with Mike Busniak. I don't know if you know Buzzy.
Yeah, he played for Flyers, right?
Yeah. Great guy. And he was the assistant to John Paddock in Hartford at the time. So Buzzy and I were up there for the weekend together for this thing. And, so they got the kids that were going to school for sports medicine from York University to run the test. So before the tournament started, each team ran their own strength and conditioning tests and stuff like that. So I was just walking around monitoring the kids, and I happened to stop by where the girl is doing the body fat with the calipers, which we all, like I just said, I don't really trust that method, right? So I took a look at her stats. I'm looking at them going, there's no way. There's no way.
Oh, right.
So I said, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you do my body fat real quick? She goes, yeah, sure. So, and it was like off the charts. It was like, I don't know, 22%.
Oh, right? What are you, 12 or something?
Yeah, at that time, it's probably 10, 11, 12, somewhere around there. And then I'm looking at, now she's got 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids that you can bounce a quarter off.
Yeah.
And they're up like at 17, 18%, whatever.
Right.
So I think what happened was she was a girl, she was pretty attractive, and she's all these guys running around with no shirts on, and and she probably got a little bit nervous about touching them and so forth. So the point is, it was very inaccurate. And on the flight, or whenever I got back to New York, I said to Slats, I said, you can look at everything except body fat. Throw those out the window. They're meaningless. But all the other tests were good.
It's so funny. It's funny you talking about body fat. Herb Brooks, he used to do the body fat test. It was like every Monday. And I would get freaked out.
Yeah,
it's funny looking back at it now how much it bothered me because I had to have, and then I wouldn't eat for the whole day or whatever going to practice. It really wasn't going to make a difference whether I ate or not in the morning, right? That's just change your body fat. And again,
there's acceptable what we call parameters, like 12% is pretty higher end athlete, 10% you get into the elite athletes, and then 8 or 9%. And again, it depends on which sport we're talking about. Right. Because if you're in a collision sport like football or hockey, you don't want to be down at 8 or 9%. Some guys are, but it's a little bit too late in terms of body fat percentage.
How much does genetics play into body fat?
A ton. Maybe a ton was a bad word, but a lot.
Yeah. That's pretty funny. I like that a ton.
A lot. And again, you know, your genetics, almost like your environment, they don't define who you are. Right. They certainly play a factor, but even within that range, there's no excuse to, then what you're working against. So you work harder to not let it happen. But as we both know too, hockey's a funny game. I mean, you got a guy, Phil Kessel, who's not exactly.
I was just thinking of Phil, yeah.
You know, I mean, but boy, is he a hockey player.
Yeah.
Right. And then you get other guys that are shredded and can't shoot the puck in the ocean.
Yeah. No kidding,
know?
Eh?
Yeah. So we've all seen that. So, but in general, I mean, you still have to have guidelines where people have to fit in, and you're going to have outliers all the time, but you want everybody.
Right. And so, like, over time, it's more the individual too. So that he's on that same team, they're testing him all the time, and they realize, okay, your body fat should be between 10 and 13, let's say. And then all of a sudden he shows up and it's 22. Well, there's a problem, right? Because he's established what his body fat should be, right?
I mean, we had a guy, I won't name names, but he was a star coach. We used an electronic scale, and everybody would have a towel, not this guy, nothing, right? And he would do this huge exhale. And I'm looking, do you really think it's going to make a difference?
We had some guy, I had a client, I won't use his name either. I had a client of mine, an old teammate was coaching up in Hartford, and he was responsible for weighing in all the guys. So one of my clients, when I was in the agent business, was a young kid that had a little bit of weight problem. And he figured out a way to stand on the scale, like on the side of it, kind of, so it wouldn't register. And finally, my old buddy that was coaching called me up and says, you know what? He was fooling us all along. I finally looked at him on the scale. I said, get on the scale. And it was like 20 pounds difference, whatever. You know, he was like,
I mean, the old trick too, and this particular guy, because everybody knew it. So it's like a conga line. Everybody's lined up to get weighed in. I had a big chart, and he's standing there and he's looking down. I see like this look of terror. I forget who it was, but it was like kind of just putting a toe on the back of this, and he couldn't see it and was adding weight. But yeah, guys freak out about the scale. Yeah.
So, okay, let's go back to Phil Kessel. So I wonder, like, okay, I want to get your opinion here. So clearly he's not, I mean, they tease him about the hot dogs all the time and everything. Right. Fitness isn't top on his, but he looks like he's in shape to play the game. Yeah. So if you're training him, do you say, Phil, listen, I know you're a great player. You scored 50 goals and all that. You played so well, could have won the Conn Smythe in Pittsburgh in the playoffs, but you could be a better player if you got yourself in shape. Do you have that conversation with him?
Yeah. So what I would say to him is, there's no doubt about your talent. There's no doubt about your skill set. But how about this thought? If we can improve your conditioning by 5%, what does that mean to you in terms of production? That 5.
Okay, so what if the answer is it won't make any difference? What if he says that to you?
He may say that, and I've had this conversation with athletes. I said, then you just tell them, look, just try it and prove me wrong. Right. Prove me wrong. Just looking for 5% improvement.
Yeah, and if you can do that. Yeah. You know, Phil's probably going to look back at his career. Maybe he won't. I mean, he's had a great career, maybe, but I think he's going to look back at his career maybe 15, 20 years from now and go, oh, God, if I just had done 5%
those
more.
Those guys are outliers. Those are outliers. You're going to have that. You're going to get that. You're going to get a guy who, has to put nickels in his pockets to weigh in at like 170. Yeah. And yet one of the best players in the league. Yeah. On history, I mean, Gretz would touch the bar. I'm done.
Yeah.
And walk out.
It's true.
Made the team somehow.
Yeah. No kidding. Yeah, it was when I first turned pro, I remember I'd gone after my senior year of college, the year before I turned pro. We were finished. They came to sign me to my contract, and I went and played New Haven in the playoffs. Great experience for me. It was fantastic. That shock of kind of first being in pro hockey was gone by doing that. But I realized I need to go back and get in great shape. So I really worked hard during the summer, running hills and working out. I was jacked. And I come to training camp, and the old guys were just awful, right? I mean, Walt Kachuk and Steve Vickers and Phil Esposito. And I'm skating around. We're doing skating drills, and I'm lapping at these guys. And I'm thinking, is this the National Hockey League? But then, training camp goes on. They get in better shape, and my conditioning is really just the same it was. And all of a sudden, I'm not laughing at anybody anymore, right? They're starting to catch up to me. So it was a different world back then, the way the guys trained. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, things have changed tremendously. But I haven't been I was in a Major League Baseball, the Yankees locker room. My friend was the strength coach there, and he invited me in, and I was like looking around the locker room. Some of the best players were it didn't look like that even stepped into a gym ever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, remember CC Sabathia, David Wells, those guys as pitchers?
Yeah.
Man, they were big men. But it seemed like I guess I haven't seen CC Sabathia's lost a lot of weight now. It seems like he wanted that weight on while he was pitching.
Fernando Valenzuela. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah.
And he was, he was a Mexican player. So by the time he made it to pro baseball here, he said he was 35. He was probably 45.
Sure. Yeah.
And he was not exactly ripped, but quite a career.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Before we forget too, we got to remember to remind everybody, August 7th, we have the event to swim across the Hudson. We call it swim across the Hudson, is what it's called?
Navy SEAL swim across the Hudson.
Navy SEAL swim across the Hudson. So again, just so everybody's aware, we're going to try to remind everybody as often as we can. This is the 3rd annual. They have 150 guys showing up?
Yeah, it's going to be huge. This year, we're probably looking at about 150 participants. I think,
and if we're allowed to, hopefully are, that we can have crowds there. It's a fantastic event to be part of, and very emotional. They swim. What was that place where they started and they made the speech and everything? They're standing in that hallway.
Liberty State Park.
That's where it was. Oh, I don't know if anybody has been there too. It's like a hallway is built facing Manhattan. It's got all the names of the people that lost their lives in 9/11.
We start there at the Fallen Towers.
And the SEAL guys standing there. It's quite the sight. They got the flags going and everything. That's pretty patriotic. Yeah, and then they ultimately swim across the Hudson and end up in Lower Manhattan. Then they go to the 9/11 memorial site. They actually go do some more pull-ups and sit-ups, or pull-ups and push-ups. What was that when they were doing the pull-ups and push-ups there in Manhattan? That was a memorial as well, wasn't it? What was that for?
That's the 9/11 memorial, but.
Is it still remember it's separated from 9/11 Memorial where they did the pull-ups there in Lower Manhattan? Wasn't there the guy was riding a horse?
Yeah, it's a statue, I think, of the special operators, and that's where we set up.
Yes,
we're allowed to set up the pull-up.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So again, that's happening on August 7th. Again, we'll keep you updated as often as possible, and hopefully, again, everybody get there because it's a fantastic event to get to. It's quite a sight seeing these guys doing it. And again, our trainer here, Patriot Training Systems, is Mark's business. He's done he can train anybody. Not training me though. I know everything, right?
That's why I come to you.
Well, good to see you again, bud. Actually, we got our friend. I think this week, our old Navy SEAL Kenny Big B Jr. is coming on for a show as well. So it's one of our favorite individuals. So.
Yeah, he is a very he's a really bright man.
Yeah,
and. You know what? He's just smiling and happy to be, talking to you, and he's feeding off of you, and you don't even realize it.
Oh, totally. That's one of the things that's really impressed me about being around the teams guys that they're tough men, there's no question, but they're really humble, and they really when they're engaged in a conversation, they are fully engaged in the conversation, very respectful, too. So yeah, good. All right, bud. We'll see you next week.
All right, see you next week.